the school system is broken. And the school is very similar to a banking system in the fact that when you go into a bank, what do you picture? You see like an ATM, for example, right? And an ATM has like inside, it has money filtering in a very orderly fashion, like it's structured. And it's very similar to how kids in school get information because uh, they are being fed the information. Because the kids, when they're in school, have been trained not to think for themselves. They've been trained to just accept the information and not ask questions. Because think about it, when you're a kid, you're raising your hand all the time, asking why, raising your hand, and the teacher tells you like calm down, like sit down, trying to get you to, trying to lessen your curiosity. Um, and why does this happen? Well, think about who's running the banks. The people who are running the banks are rich, hearing men who are in charge of that, and then they influence, and then so those same people influence the school system, and yeah. So um, back in 1990, when the Industrial Revolution was taking place, um, like the economy was growing, culture was emerging and becoming like more powerful, and mass production became a very prominent thing in society. And so mass production requires mass consumption. But the end goal is profit. And so the people who are in charge of uh, producing all of these goods, their end goal is to make money. So um, excuse me, uh, when these kids are in school, they're being taught to consume and to just take things and to just consume what they're given. So that benefits the people who are in charge of, producing all of these mass goods, because if these kids are taught that in school, then they come out and just consume without question. Um, and so back, when people were still, farming and having their own self-sustaining lifestyle, um, and didn't depend on going to school or didn't depend on other needs. They had their own self-supporting life. Um, they didn't need mass consumption. They weren't baited by that, and so the people who ran the banks and people who were running this like corporate America um, production thought like, how can we get these people? How can we get these farmers to invest, and how can we get them to be a part of our like mass consumption? How can we bait them? And the way that they thought was the school system, because the school system was a way that they could get everybody into one place and to just teach them all the same ideals. And so then it became policy that all children must go to school. And so that is where the separation starts. The goal is to separate certain groups of people. They get labeled groups of kids who are the good kids and groups of kids who are the bad kids, right? So the groups of kids who are labeled as the good kids are being groomed basically to become the future controllers of the marginalized, or the group labeled the troublemakers or the bad kids. These good kids are being taught and told what to think and what to do, and how to perceive this other group of people, so that when they are the ones who are going to be in charge at some point, they will know exactly what to carry on doing. And so the goal is to separate the two, so then that way there is that divide and of the elite and the rest. Um, And so, um, um, and three large components of the school system being the way that it is was, oh, sorry, backing up. Three main goals or three main ideals that have been identified that match with how deaf education is run is uh, differentiating function or selective function and P something function. Differentiating function is the separation. Selective is who is going to what group. And then the P function, I cannot remember the name. And so those three functions fit with how the deaf education system is also run. And so anyway, the three proponents of how the school system is being run today and why it is the way that it is are Alexander Graham Bell, AGB, Carnegie, and Rockefeller. Because Carnegie and Rockefeller were the two most powerful hearing men that ran everything. They were the richest men, right? So they had a lot of power and a lot of influence. And Alexander Graham Bell had specific ideas about the deaf community. And so he and Alexander Graham Bell, Carnegie, and Rockefeller all shared a lot of the same ideas about how things should be run and how things, what things should look like. And so they all got together and discussed how things should look and what things should be like. And so they all agreed that this is what school should be like. This is what we want it to be. And they all invested money in that. And the whole goal is to, again, create that separation. And so now the school system or the school in and of itself has become like a laboratory where people are conducting like tests of sorts on groups of people, seeing like, okay, well, how do they react when we do this? How do they react when we do that? And they can fine tune certain things and certain behaviors to get them to how they want to be. You know, it's like when you're in a laboratory and you are just conducting a lot of tests, mixing things to see what works and what doesn't until you get it to be exactly the way that you want it to be. And then on the topic of eugenics, it has been studied, the two separate groups of the elite and the 90% have been studied to see, like, well, why have these patterns continued? Like, is there something genetically that that comes up for the wealthy people and why they're wealthy, and the poorer populations and why they're poorer? Is that something that has been brought up in their genetics? Is there some sort of connection as to why it has happened like that? And that's just the study that has been done. And so, because the main goal of all of this is really control and making sure that the people who are in charge stay in charge and that they get to control what they want.